football hosts Akron on Saturday, noon, SHI Stadium, live on BTN. Find that BTN Game Finder if you don't see them on your description of your TV right now. Penn State is the main game. Rutgers is being aired live by BTN. Just you have to look for your cable provider, FYI. In terms of this game, I have a preview that was out with David Anderson on Thursday, running through kind of the matchup with Akron, what to look for. Obviously, a Joe Moorhead team, pretty innovative offensively, and we don't know what to expect from the availability report. What I wanted to cover in this Friday episode is something we didn't really harp on in that discussion, and that is, first of all, a lot of teams, you look at the improvement from week 1 to week 2 as a barometer for progress and what this team could ultimately be. And when I keep thinking about Rutgers, the question that keeps coming back to me and things that have been missing from this team over the years as they've tried to move their way up the Big Ten is a lack of consistent playmakers. And I think that that's where this team is really intriguing. Obviously, they elevated play last year and became a winning team, a bowl winning team, because of Kyle Monungai, first and foremost, because he was a consistent playmaker for this team. And both offensively, defensively, for Rutgers to make another leap this year, it can't just be the Kyle Monungai show. You need more than that. And I think we saw some signs in the week 1 win over Howard that are encouraging. And then I think there's also some questions going into this game to see if other players can step up as well. So offensively, of course, it starts with the quarterback, Ethan Kaliakmanis. I think he, obviously missed his long throws. He was 0 for 4 from deep in that game. But most importantly, he was 15 of 20 in the short to intermediate passing game. He was 7 of 7 in the short passing game. Can he replicate that against a better team, Akron, a MAC team? Obviously not one of the better MAC teams, but as we mentioned in the preview, held their own against Ohio State into that third quarter, only giving up 17 points. And then the wheels fell off predictably based on the talent level and their quarterback going down and all that. But can Kaliakmanis put together another consistent, accurate performance where he's steady, he doesn't turn the ball over, he makes some plays, and he's able to lead this offense in a way that we hadn't seen the year before with Gavin Wimsatt in charge? That, to me, is a huge key and something I'm looking for in this game. We know Kyle Monungai can do Kyle Monungai things. It was funny, a little bit of criticism of him. I mean, he tied his career high with 165 yards rushing against Howard. He did get stopped on 2 short plays, 4th and 1 on one, and I think there was a 3rd and 1 on another. But, at the end of the day, he was able to break off several runs, and I think you'll see that again on Saturday. And the biggest thing was him is bubble wrapping him up early enough. They got him out of the game midway third quarter against Howard. It would be an ideal scenario if Rutgers could do the same on Saturday, again against Akron. I don't know. The likelihood of that, probably less likely than not, but still, obviously his health is so monumental for this team. But talking about additional playmakers, if Rutgers can have Sam Brown as that number 2 running back that is able to give them production both in the run game, in the short passing game, that touchdown that he had, his acceleration on the outside, when he gets out in open space, he's going to be very hard for defenses to bring down. And that really stuck out in terms of his performance. He does run a bit high between the inside of the rush, so that's something to watch for. But again, he's coming off of that season-ending injury from 2 years ago. Last year, took a long time for him to shake off that rust. But with a full offseason, if he can be a consistent playmaker for Rutgers, backing up Monungai and almost becoming close to a 1-2 headed monster for this team, that will elevate the offense along with Kaliakmanis to a level that they're going to be a very good team. Wide receiver, Demir Miller showed some flashes, had that touchdown, 4 catches, playing more in the slot ahead of Christian Drimmel. Can he have another strong game against Akron? Ian Strong had a key drop early on, but his playmaking ability, I think, in terms of being able to go up and get the ball, I talked about before the season. I think he could be a real red zone threat for this team. Will we see some of that on Saturday? Obviously, the weather is supposed to be pretty choppy in terms of rain, thunderstorms. So how much Rutgers will throw it, in addition to the fact that, they're going to keep the playbook pretty vanilla, but they did look to get Ian Strong involved pretty quickly in the Howard game. That was an encouraging sign. So look for more of that on Saturday. And then obviously Chris Long becoming that third starter back from his own season-ending injury last year. Can Rutgers establish some rhythm with all three of the receivers? That's obviously going to be key going into a bye. And then Virginia Tech a week after that, playing only Big Four competition from their Power Four competition after that. So really important for that trio at wide receiver. If they could be consistent as a group week to week in the pass game, that will be a huge step forward for Rutgers. And then Kenny Fletcher, his ability to catch the ball as the tight end, 4 catches in that debut for him against Howard at that role. Blocking is something that, is going to be a work in progress, I think, at least early on. But his ability to run routes, to get off of the line and get open, his hands, he was a wide receiver in high school, but he looked very comfortable out there running routes and catching the ball. He's able to run, if he could be a threat in the middle of the field, that's going to help open things up. So looking for another game from him in the pass game where he could be a factor, that would obviously be a huge positive and confidence builder for this team. Shifting to defense, big questions on the defensive line. They were missing some players. Obviously, Troy Rainey didn't play. Wesley Bailey, who I think is their best pass rusher on the edge, did not play. No word on whether they will play in this game against Akron. But Aaron Lewis, he had some moments, but can he take another step forward and really lead this defensive line against Akron? They have some pretty good size on that offensive line, but they really need him to be that force that we all think and hope he can be on a consistent basis. Again, he's had a good career. He's shown flashes of being a dominant player. He hasn't necessarily put it all together yet. And doing so against Akron would certainly be a very positive sign heading into the bye and then the schedule getting much harder. They need Aaron Lewis to be at his best this season for that defense to take another step forward. They need Wesley Bailey to be healthy. I don't know if he's going to be in this game or not, but who else is going to step up? You saw Jordan Walker late in the game get the lone sack. I thought Malcolm Ray played really well in the middle. I think just in terms of that rotation, Rutgers has to work out that defensive line rotation and who's going to step up in this game that's going to be able to generate some consistent pressure on Akron, whether it's their starting quarterback, whether it's familiar face Raj Bullock from St. Peter's as the backup for Akron. He may start based on the health of their starter. So we'll see what happens there. But I think if you could see players step up and really be a presence in the pass rush for Rutgers, that would be a big step forward. Linebackers, of course, Motoray's out for the season. Tyrone Powell, I'm not sure about him. I'd be personally surprised if he plays, but we'll see. Which leads you to Jabome and Moses Walker, Abram Wright. I mean, can they build on the performances in game one? Was not perfect coverage-wise and just in terms of David Anderson talked about in our preview in terms of reading the right angles and attacking the point of attack in terms of how they were able to make tackles. So that is really important. And I also think just recognition in terms of Joe Moorhead is an elite offensive coach. He's going to do some things to try to trick the Rutgers defense. And do they have the recognition, the ability to understand what is being called and to be able to adjust on the field? Their ability to be the quarterback of the defense. That is, I think, a huge key for this team this season with the absence of Teray and however long Powell is out. So interesting to see there, something to watch for. And then the secondary, Kaj Sanders really stuck out in terms of fitting right in, being able to make plays. Igbeneusen and Loyal picked up where they left off. You saw Eric Rogers with that interception. You had Longer Beam steady as always. So can that secondary group, we don't know if Flick Dixon's going to play or not, but regardless of the fact, can that secondary continue to make plays for this defense? One criticism of the defense last year was a lack of turnovers. And with Akron, if bad weather, if they can force some turnovers against an offense, it's going to take some chances. They're going to have to go into a Big Ten stadium, and MAC teams have had success before. You're going to see Akron take some chances. Can the secondary take advantage of it, make big plays? Eric Rogers, obviously, with a pick six last week. Can't expect that every week, but you're looking for this secondary to really be disruptive, prevent big plays, but also create some turnovers for this defense would be huge. Special teams, Jay Patel converted on his one field goal kick Anderson, the punter, a little bit, in terms of the punt coverage unit, the punt team overall, they missed the punt block barely. They had to call 2 timeouts on the punt unit. So can that team be more cohesive, let alone start to make some big plays, whether it's in the return game with Benjamin Black, whether it's blocking a kick in this game, whether it's just pinning the opposition deep in their own area inside the 20. Can the Rutgers special teams, Rutgers has always been at its best when its special teams can make game-changing plays. And they're going to need them to do that again this year. So Akron would be a pretty good start after, a little bit of a shaky start in that opener. Not a criticism per se. There's obviously rotating younger players in, but you want to see them take another step here in week 2. Overall, Rutgers, Akron, this is a game they need to win. It's a game I listed as a trap game before the season, but something in particular that I'm looking for is who can Rutgers rely on as consistent playmakers week to week, and we'll get a little bit more taste of it in this game to see who maybe can repeat from a strong week 1, or are there other players that maybe had a quiet week 1 that step up and show us something in a way that, hey, you know what, they could be a playmaker too. Options. Rutgers has not had multiple options in multiple spots in the past, more so on offense, but even on defense. They need to have depth this year, and if you can see more players step up, there hopefully is an opportunity for younger players to get some run again in this game if Rutgers can take control from the opening kick as they need to and should. There is a lot of storylines that will come out in this game that are worth looking at. Again, you can't jump to conclusions and whatever the final score is, but it's, I think, between the lines there, just in terms of seeing come certain players and what they can do and how they can build on that week 1, both individually and as a team, is something to watch for in terms of whether Rutgers, how their ceiling can ultimately turn out to be in this season 24 for Rutgers. Bye week after Akron, let it all out on the field. Obviously, you want to protect guys that are dealing with stuff, and starters, you'd like to see them off the field as early as possible if this game is sewn up. But at the end of the day, a win is a win is a win. If this was a dogfight and you see Rutgers late in the 4th quarter fighting for their lives, wouldn't surprise me. There is a little bit of a positive there in terms of getting into a game like that. But based on the competition, based on the health factor of this team, you would very much prefer the alternative of Rutgers going into that 4th quarter up 3-4 scores, whatever it may be, where a lot of the younger players can develop in-game live action. We'll see what happens there. And I'll be back after the game with a rapid reaction. As always, thank you so much for listening and watching to the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.